Okay, so elevations, general things that we need to include in the elevation. Actually, we need to identify the elevations. If you remember from communication 1, that elevation is tilted slightly, like our example. How would we label the elevations? How would we identify them? إذا مثلا فين احنا we rotate it. Actually, by the way, just doing back a bit, the north arrow, it's rotated how many degrees? 30, not 30 something. So check your north arrow in your site plan and your plans. Make sure it's rotated when it's vertical. Just rotate it 30 degrees. Some of you have more. Generally, most of you have more, maybe 40 or 35. So just go back to 0 and rotate to 30 degrees. الحين, if we look at the north elevation اللي فوق, do we label it north or the northeast? Only north. So look at the general direction and that's your elevation. So don't write northeast. For our elevation, you'll do north. For our project this week, we're only doing 2 elevations, not 4. So we're doing the accent wall. طوفة اللي فيها accent material, that's one elevation. The other one is going to be the balcony, where you see the balcony. So we're doing 2 elevations. Okay? So you identify the elevations. Sometimes if it's not a complex project and maybe you're still in the early stages, you can do front, rear, left, and right. But we're doing north, south, east, west. The elevations, we show the structural grid, as you can see here. So whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, على حسب which view you're looking at the elevation. We typically show the types, so that's one of the more important things to show in an elevation is the materials. Fixia or the finishing on the walls. What's the type of material and how do we show it? And what's the label? So if you have stone, you can say ST-01. So if it's the first type of stone, then if you might have a second stone, ST-02. And you show the hatch of that material. If it's brick, you show the brick and you might write BR01 for brick 1, brick 2, you have different colors, sigma. Other important features are windows and doors. So when we show the windows and doors, we will show them with a tag. And I'll talk about some of the details, like where you open the door or the window. You'll see it in the coming slides. Also important, we show the FFL, the final finished level, on the sides. So شنو ارتفاع الأرضيات. Then we show selected vertical dimensions. So we don't show all the dimensions and we don't show the horizontal dimensions. إذا أنا عندي dimension that's horizontal, من وين يجيبها؟ يعني عرض الباب مثلا أو عرض هالطوفة. Where can I get it? In the plan. I already put so many dimensions there. So if I want that reference, I can get it from the plan without putting many dimensions with elevation. What I'm going to add here is what's missing in the plan, which is the heights. ارتفاع الباب, ارتفاع from floor to floor, and so on. Other details we show are مثلا the footing below ground, so we show where the footings are. Sometimes we also show the stairs على حسب our view. So if you look at this example here, you'll notice that the stairs are shown behind the wall as hidden lines. So على حسب which elevation you're looking at, it could be helpful to show where your stairs are located. Some general considerations. The first one is the design consideration. So typically the tops of your doors and windows should line up. Generally تكون هي مثلا الريشة هذه وهذه line up مع الباب. So that's a general normal consideration and I want you to follow it in our project. There's no good reason, unless it's part of your design where you stagger the windows and doors. But a normal typical design, they're aligned. So make sure to do that in your design when you see a door and a window in بعض. When the floor plans or the design of your building is irregular, the walls are going to appear distorted. But if this is your elevation, you see it as a normal facade. Now, if my elevation wall was like this, the lengths would be different. So if you look at here, مثلا, look at C. If you're looking at C without changing your angle, what's going to happen? This wall here is going to look shorter than it actually is, when it's at an angle. So the way to solve this is you can break it up into two elevations, as you can see here, and the sight line where you put the elevation then becomes angled as well. So when you look at the elevation, you see المتر يبين متر، مو المتر يبين 90 مثلا, because it's at an angle. So you can see that in this example. And when you draw it, you can show this break, like we draw the break in the stairs, and then you're breaking between two elevations, two angles. And then you can show both as straight without distortions. When you have an irregular shaped building, so again, these are all general things, maybe they don't apply to our building, but when you have an irregular shaped building, you also have to have a key plan. So this is an irregular shaped building, you have multiple elevations, so you should have a key plan, and the key plan usually goes in the bottom right of your sheet to tell you this is elevation 1, 2, 3, 4, and where exactly you're looking at the building. When you have a wall that has a courtyard or like the H shape اللي قاعد نشوفها هني, you will have some hidden elevations. مثلا the H from the sides, so you can add additional elevations, or it could be a section elevation. So you need to show the hidden walls, or like this type of courtyard. Whether we're talking about in the elevation or the plan. If the plan says plus 300, then make sure here it shows plus 300. Make sure they match. And the structural grid lines, like I mentioned. If you have a curved wall, for construction purposes, this doesn't help much. When we show it actually as is, you see how it's distorted. مرة الشباك يبين كبير, مرة يبين صغير, مرة يبين just part of it. So for construction purposes, you need to like unpeel the elevation like you see here, so that you can see it as a straight elevation, and the measurements are actual. فعارف بين دريشة ودريشة مثلا متر, whereas here this distance is different than this distance because it's angled. So that's typically what they do when it's a curved wall. This is an example of elevation. You'll notice the structural grid does not go all the way through. فراح نرفعهم up, so it doesn't distract the elevation view itself. Another important feature is we show some of the vertical elements. You notice in the slides we say TOW, which is top of wall. لأن تشوفون هني مثلا when I write the FFL, خلينا نفترض على السطح مثلا. أنا حاط the final finish where I'm going to be standing. But I don't have an FFL or a level showing me where the top of the parapet مال السور السطح, the height is. So I need to add something like this where it's an arrow pointing at the top of the wall and it says top of wall. فأعرف ارتفاع الparapet wall, how high it is at this level. مثلا خلينا نفترض this is 8,000, so this is 9,000 or 9,200. عرفت إنه صار متر و20 فوق الفاينل finish level. You'll notice in the doors and the windows there's a dashed line. I'll talk about it in a couple of slides. This shows how to open the door or window, in which direction. It tells you where the hinges are. showing يتبطل يتسكر شباك. So for doors and windows, we want to draw them as close as possible as the actual configuration, what you see in real life. Like I mentioned, ما راح نحط مثلا عرض الباب. عرض الباب, I get it from the plans, so I don't need to do that again. And then the full details are also in the schedules. When we do the schedules for doors and windows, you'll see them there. First, we want to see the heights. So the heights of the doors and the heights of the windows and how high it is off the ground if it's a window, that we want to show. As you can see here, we use a dashed line to show in which direction the door will open. So the point comes to where the hinges are. So if I were to draw this window, where would I do the dashed line? وين راح يبتدي؟ Where's the center point? Here, where the hinges. So this is the hinge. This is where it pivots. So this is going to be where the dashed line starts, and it goes to these two corners. Okay? Don't confuse it with from here going to the hinges. That it starts where the hinges are. So I have the dashed line go this way and that way. So this door is going to be on the right side as well, and we take it to the corners. Okay. So always look for where the hinges are. That's where the point center is. And then you take it to the other two corners. We also show the materials as applicable. If it's a wooden door, you'd show the grain of the wood. If it's a sliding door, you can show the sliding angle, which we have on our balcony. As is. Windows, again, if it's حسب شلون يتبطل, and if it's sliding. When we show the materials, we want to describe the material of the wall surface. So we show the pattern. This we would also show in a very short description, but the specifications will be more detailed. But before we get to the specifications in the elevations, we want to write something basic about how it's installed. We have to say if it's mechanical installation, semi-mechanical, or non-mechanical. So full mechanical, we talked about that before, صح? No? So الحجر, I'm talking about الخام or travertino or granite. When you attach it to the wall, if you see big projects with a big surface of stone, have you tried knocking on the stone and seeing what the material is behind it? No? Do you think it's going to sound hollow or solid?
Solid.
Hollow. ليش؟ لأن if it's full mechanical, راح تلاقون support is like installed on the wall, وبعدين الرخام راح يقعد على support. ورا الرخام فاضي. There's nothing. Okay, so that's full mechanical, where when you knock, and most of the stone you'll see will be like that in big projects. That's a stronger way to support it, so that it doesn't fall off, especially with large areas. That guarantees that it's held up with supports. Semi-mechanical is when you have the stone. The material behind the stone has to be the stronger brick, so that you can put the supports of the mechanical system. Semi-mechanical, which is more common with Kuwait, especially smaller projects, يكون مسامير بالطوفة. بعدين يربطون steel wire seam بالحجر in a specific way. And once they do that, then they fill cement behind it. So when you knock on the stone, it's going to feel solid. So it's semi-mechanical. Then it's half mechanical, half cement. That's why it's called semi-mechanical. The traditional way is like ceramic. Basically just the material with the cement with nothing holding it in place. Which is riskier, especially if you have مثلا facade ممكن يطيح. And you'll notice actually along the streets, when you go around, you might see some pieces of stone falling off buildings. That probably has to do with the way it was installed, maybe not in the right way with a semi-mechanical system. لو بنحط مثلا ستاكو او سيجمنت نقول انه مثلا وراه في wire mesh شبك حديد بعدين cement. But I'll give you those descriptions next class, and we'll include them. Just a very short couple of things, words to describe how it was supported on the wall. And then a more detailed description will be in the specifications as we get to it later in the semester. How you will show the materials visually. Each material is shown differently. So you'll notice here, this is the TOW, and then it writes what the height is. Each material then has a designation, for like stone مثل ما قلت ST01, brick BR01. Sigma مثلا could be something close to the name, or PP for painted plaster. Sigma is a more local designation. When you go abroad, you won't see the name Sigma. It's kind of like saying tissue Kleenex. It's like a brand. Ababa, it's more like stucco, STUCCO. Stucco or plaster, painted plaster, or textured plaster. So different materials, different elements, and how you show them. So there's a hierarchy for the note block. And typically we are putting our note block now in our title block. Now we don't have a lot of information in the title block. Because once you have a more complex project, في وايد معلومات في the title block, the next column is where the general, where the note block takes place here. So you start with the general notes, then you have the reference notes, بعدين تحت في عندنا the key plan that usually goes all the way in the bottom, the key plan. Text, we talked about text, and that needs to be standard. So if you're using a certain label, keep the same height throughout. We always use a sans serif. Do we know what's a sans serif versus a serif font? What does serif mean?
I just know it's a font name.
It's a font name that's based on what?
Traditional or modern?
Yeah, it has to do with more modern and traditional. It has to do with calligraphy. Let me show you an example. What's an example of a serif font?
Times Roman.
Times New Roman. You see those extensions here? You see those extensions here? These are called serifs. They used to be part of the tips of the calligraphy pens when they write the names, the letters. Sans serif, sans just means without. It's French for without. So this is a modern type, which is without serif. So Arial is a standard one, so always just use standard text when you're doing your text throughout the project, and be consistent. But if you use Arial throughout the whole project. And avoid slanted or italic text, any underlining text, or bold fonts. So these we typically avoid in our drawings. I'm including a bunch of different symbols that we use both in elevation and plan, whether it's cut or seen in view. These are from the National Institute of Building Sciences that does standard symbols and graphics that are used in the field. So مثلا how to do a spot elevation, corner of the property, bricks مثلا, different materials, how to show them whether it's cut or seen in elevation. Different elements, parts of the construction process, wood, insulation. So I have a few that are there for your reference: electrical, soil, landscape. Okay, so I've highlighted things that typically we include in the elevation, and this is specifically what we will have. So we will have two elevations. First, you have to identify all your elevations: north, south, east, west. But we're only showing two of them. So we're showing the accent wall, and we're showing the balcony side. Okay. We have to show the structural grid lines and make sure to pull them up. I'll show you how so that it's not cutting through the elevation. we have to show the types of exterior wall materials. So we have two materials and then one that's throughout, and then we have an accent wall. So you need to identify those and show the hatches on them. We need to show the types of doors and windows. So we add the same tag اللي حطيناها بالplan, we tag it on the elevation as well. And we show the dashed line so to see how it opens, in which direction. We're adding the FFL, specific vertical dimensions that we're going to include, such as the top of wall that I mentioned. We will show the footings, the structural foundations, using hidden lines. So we'll draw them showing dashed hidden lines. We will show the section view references, so where you're cutting through a section, that will show as well. Stairs as hidden lines, we may or may not show it. على حسب our views, and we most likely will not show it. Best, and the rest are the standard things: Revit, PDF, line weights, line types, and so on. Any questions? Okay, so let's jump into it. In your floor plans, how many of you showed the columns? Okay, so if you haven't, don't worry about it, just show the columns, but also you need to make sure that they're not overlapping with the walls, and you can only find that out when you export PDF. In the Revit, you can يبين that you see the column as concrete. It's when you export, ممكن تشوفون الطوفة داشة على column with a hatch. So I'll show that now. So open one of your floors, the ground floor or first floor. Column. So go to if you're columns that are hidden, go to VG, visibility graphics. So you might not see if you go down to model categories, your structural columns are probably unchecked like this. If they're unchecked, check your corners. If they're missing, go to VG under model categories. So again, if you remember, model categories are items that are modeled. Annotation, it's like labels that show only in that view. For model categories, go to structural columns and make sure it's checked. Once you have it showing, you could export first the PDF and see how it would look. If you see that it's showing up where this hatch continues, overlapping it, then go to modify, join, click on the column and then join it with the wall next to it. You might see this line. What do you think this line is? القامة جام. This is the other wall, and the wall is coming as an L. So I just joined this column with this wall, but that's not joining with this one. So again, do it again, select the column and join it with the wall that's vertical to get rid of this line. But in this column, when I export, should not show as a diagonal hatch here. Do that to all your columns. No. If it's not overlapping, so export, but you have to export to PDF. If you don't export to PDF, what you see on Revit might not be what's in the PDF. Now that happened in my file. Yes.
How do I join again? Do I have the column?
Modify, and then select join, which is under cut.
Yeah.
Select the column. You select the column and then the wall. Make sure you select both walls if you start getting a dark line in between. Another comment about your walls. So if you have the accent wall, and next to it there's a door or a window, don't keep it too close to the edge. Then what am I showing? I'm showing that here there's a brick. This is cross hatch اللي هو الطابوق الأسود. تخيلوا لو أنا الحين الباب بزقته هني مثلا بس 5 أو 10 سنتي away from the other wall. What I'm saying practically is راح أجيب طابوق وبقصه this thin وبعدين بحط الباب يمه, which in construction is not very practical unless you have a really good reason to do it. Avoid it and push the door away a set dimension from the edge. Any questions about plans before we jump into the elevations? Any issues you're facing?
So when I'm trying to say we join the column, then أنا مو كل الcolumns are overlapping مع الwall.
تمام.
بس اثنين ماشي.
حلو.
فيوم بعدل overlapping
شنو يقول لك؟ You selected both walls نسوي مع الطوفة اليمة وبعدين الطوفة الثانية if it's an L.
So أنا أعرف إذا
You have to export. And the only way to find out is export to PDF. Export it and then look at the PDF and see if there's an overlap ولا لا. Then it could, this happened with me. هني يبين ما في overlap. أشوف الPDF الخط مبين.
Because when I'm selecting them separately, should be in
Which, selecting what separately?
when I select one wall, I select only the other side, more done together as one joint wall.
It won't.
It's one?
It will still show them as elements, but you're telling Revit they should appear as joined. They're not going to actually be as one element. Another thing is you need to look at your columns and if they have moved from the core. مثلا this column, so the hammam might not be aligned with your core, so you need to move it to align it with the core. Okay, check that the lines are aligned with the core. By the way, not always in construction, this is the condition that you will see. This is the ideal connection where the column is the same width as your core. شنو يصير لو الحين عندي أنا الكولوم هذا صار أكبر من الكور؟ How is that going to affect my construction? لو الحين هذا الكولوم is wider, let's say 25 سم بدل 20, my core is 20, what's going to happen? It will pop out. زين? And this is a very common thing بالكويت لأن the designer and the structural engineer are not working together where they ensure that the column نفس الwidth مال core. Okay? So it's your job as a designer to coordinate with a structural engineer whether you make it part of your design or you tell them to change the design لأن الcolumn يشيل اللود المربع مثلا ممكن يشيل نفس الريكتانجل بس ممكن المربع يكون 40 ب 40 بس الريكتانجل 20 by 80 to carry the same load. So you have to work with the engineer so that you're following the same materials. Or if the column let's say has to be 30, then you can change the core. The core يصير 30. إذا ما في حل ثاني حق الستراكشر يعني. Let's say the column has to be this big. فنقدر نغير الكور نخليه 30 عشان يمشي مع الكولوم. It might cost more, you might lose width of the room, but design wise and finishing wise it will be better. Okay, so let's move back to the elevations. Here in your elevations, you see east, north, south, west. I want you to find, O'Shea, where is your accent wall? So mine is in the south, not necessarily like yours. So find your accent wall and find your balcony, which side it is. How many of you have your walls floating in the air? Okay, so what's the issue here? Why is this wall floating? So this topo solid ارتفاع شنو؟ sidewalk level. Sidewalk level is 0, صح؟ السور مالي, if you select السور, base constraint is ground floor. So that means it's above the 0. المفروض السور يكون على الصفر. Okay? Another just quick comment على السور. If you go to your site plan, تلاحظون حدود السور هنا. You see the corner of my plot, and you see the edge of where the wall comes. It's the same center of the outer face of the wall. So make sure in your site plan, the center of your corner of the plot is where the outer edge of your wall comes. Some of you have moved this out or moved your wall outside of the property line. So make sure that your wall comes to the center of the plot, and do this on all sides. So again, look at the PDF example اللي حطيتها last one of the site. You'll notice where this comes in. They meet the outer point in the center of the black corner. Another thing, some of you still have arrows sticking out from here, so there's overlap. When you see OL, any overlapping data, so you can remove the arrows. ما في داعي يصير في arrow and it's overlapping, then you have lots of lines over here. Okay, but how do we fix the wall? Go to the site plan, and you can select your boundary wall. So hover over the walls, tab. Now you have all the boundary walls selected, and change the base constraint from ground floor to sidewalk. Make sure to change your door as well, and it's probably already set on the ground floor, so change it to sidewalk as well. While you're in the site plan, this is a good place to see the elevations and where they're located and how far they are from the building. So if you write VG, go to annotation categories. and check elevations. If you don't see all of them, that's probably because your view is cropped. So uncrop your view. You see the bottom one that just showed up. These tags are the elevation tags. Hey, if you look at the south elevation مثلا, or any one of them, when you click on the top label, it shows you where this reference view line is. Technically, it's like a section, as if we're cutting through the side. So if you open this view, مثلا, okay, now I'm looking at the south. You're looking at the ground in elevation view, right? If I go back to the site plan and I move this into my topo solid, now go back to the south, it's like a section. So it's telling me where I'm cutting that line. Either way, we don't want to show the soil, then it's not a section. And we want to show نركز على cuttings as well. So مبدئيا, everyone identified which two elevations they're showing, whether it's south or north, east, west. Settings اللي نغيرهم is change it to scale 1 to 50. You can also change the detail level to fine. Some things we want to change. We want to hide a few things that are not necessary in our elevation. But I'm going to hide the ground, the topo solid. So right click, hide in view elements. The sur, I don't need to see the front one. I'm more interested in the building itself than what it looks like in the shara. So I'm going to hide in view element. Does anyone have issues with irtifaa al-bayt where the ground floor level is your sidewalk level? Everything's fine there? أرضية البيت. لا, you're talking about the topo solid around the house? Leave it at sidewalk. You'll get to the same result. If it's ground minus 300 أو sidewalk, وهاجي أتكلم عن نفس الليفل. بس أحسن خليه sidewalk, just in case you move for whatever reason, it moves with the sidewalk. Okay, what we want to do is create a sheet and see how it looks on the sheet so we know how much to view and crop the elevation. So new sheet. Elevation starts with which number? Yeah, so A201. Is your main elevation that you want to show. One to 50 is the scale. And then click and drag your elevation through. So to place it, center it in your frame. What's the best way to do that? How do we center the elevation? A doesn't put reference in how to move the elevation. So detail line DL.
So the sheet.
كيف الشيت؟ I'm trying to find the best placement حق elevation الأول. حطيت center line مال الفريم هذا. وبعدين الحين بالelevation بسوي اشوف طرف الطوفة شنو. So now I have the center of my wall, my building. That's the center of the building, and that's the center of the sheet. So now I just want to move this to line up with this. So I select this, and I select the sheet, and I say move, and I align this with that. But hey, now they all line up. The distance, and you can double check it, this distance from the right and left are equal. And just always make sure to delete your reference lines. Okay, but we want to see what's happening and what we can fit inside and outside the elevation. So click on your elevation, check your crop view, crop region visible, annotation crop. And then we ندخل the right side into the frame. So double click. هنصغر until we make sure our levels are within the frame. Do the same on the lower side and above on the left side. Also move the height-wise, so it's not too close to the edges. You can rename your elevation. Again, text is all uppercase. Please check your scales. Your scales, some of you are keeping wrong ones. 200 is all on all of your drawings. Make sure you break that. If you'll notice that something you can do with PDFs, when you flip through your PDFs sheets, that's because they're not using the same reference. So let's say with your scale bar, don't always place it in somewhere different. Try to find an ideal place for it, and then copy it in all your views. So when you flip through the PDF, خلاص scale كده بنفس المكان. As much as possible, things to be lined up. Let's show you floor plans. Floor plans should all be مثلا in the same location. Use a reference point and locate your ground first, second from the same reference point. When you flip through the PDF, كلهم نفس المكان. فهذا مثلا بدل ما أدخل مرة ثانية, once I figured it out مثلا in my other drawing, I would just go to, let's say, ground floor. Select, Control C, align to selected views وبعدين ممكن اختار south elevation. الحين لما بطل south elevation, this is exactly where my other views are, so I don't have to keep moving it up and down, right and left.
Wait, can you repeat that last part again?
Yeah, so what's important is you find a good spot that you think works for all your views, so you're not keep changing it. So keep it مثلا close to the edge and draw the detail lines where there's a margin that's designed. So let's say I'm happy with how it looks for the ground floor and I think it works for all my other views. Okay, I'm in my sheet, I select the scale bar, Control C. بعدين in the paste under clipboard you do the drop down arrow and you say aligned to selected views. At this point you probably should have deleted all your other scale bars and then just check all of the new views that you want to paste it in. When you hit OK, it's going to paste it in the same exact spot in the sheets. So this way it's going to be neat throughout. You can do this to your references as well. So let's say I'm in the ground floor. أعرف in my reference, let's say something that shows up in throughout. So let's say within this corner. So I can draw a circle, let's say here. So I know that this is my top left corner of my house. So I do Control C, and again I paste it to, let's say, first and roof. So I got the first floor plan, I check, and it's the same corner. Let's find the corner, and then hey, this is a parapet, so I'm not really sure this is the corner or not. So try to find something that's, it could be actually better the corner of a grid. 4D, that's the grid that's not going to move. So that's a better reference. Let me do that. So let's say find the 4D, copy it to me, align selected views, and I want my 4D to be the same in the first and roof level. And I check my corner, it's the same, and then you can move your plan so that it lines up to that corner. But if you look at the PDF, you go next, it's not moving up and down, right and left. So you can do that for the model and do it for annotation elements such as the scale, the north arrow. North arrow is always in the same spot. So fix one margin and then copy paste it in your floor plans. Make sure your north arrow does not show up in elevation. Please, you're going to lose points if you shift the north arrow in your elevations. It doesn't make sense to put a north arrow in the elevation view. Okay. So when you bring in your the edge of your crop view, you will notice that these levels are moving as well. Take it to somewhere where you have a decent margin on the sides, but it's not stuck. Don't let it be this close to the edge. Give it some buffer. But then let's go back to the view and also do it on the other side so that nothing is popping out of your view. The base, I hid it. So go to your elevation. We're going to hide a lot of things in this elevation. So to find something you've hidden, click on the light bulb. So there's the goggles, the glasses, and the light bulb. It tells you what you have hidden. And then you can select it. And right click unhide if you want to bring back an element. What also affects this is your graphic display option. If it's wireframe method, you can see through what you've hidden. Sometimes you've hidden things that are blocked. You can change this to hidden line to wireframe. That's the light bulb. فأول شيء قلنا بنسويه and I want to hide the ground. So select here topo solid. If there you have difficulty selecting something, you can also turn it off from VG. I can make the elevation bigger and select it, or I can just find it under model, go to topo solid method and uncheck it. Okay, change it to the bottom part. Let's work on the levels. So on the left, on the right side, you'll see sidewalk level. Anything we need to change here? All uppercase, so change it to okay. If you hover over the ground floor, you'll notice في 300 مخشة ورا الليفل, صح? You see it? So sidewalk level is blocking the level above. So if you'll notice, there is this zigzag here where it says add elbow تحت كلمة level. Click on this so that you can move it down. Now the issue here is this line is overlapping the level part, right? Before you move it, or if you move it after, I want you to use guidelines of where to put this line. This is, you see the line is 45. حطيت مثلا how I'm going to move this line here, but I want it to follow an angle. Might see it randomly, and if I move it just like that randomly, it might be a different angle. يصير هذا angle والثاني angle هذا angle. We want to keep it all one angle. So I use this as a guide. Doesn't have to be exact as long as it's somewhat following this line. So 1 or 2 degrees off is okay. And then make sure to delete. You might adjust it as well. This is a bit close to the edge. زين فالحين عندنا ground عندنا sidewalk level في first and roof. We want to add top and bottom of footing. So to add a level, there are 2 ways. There are 2 ways to add an additional level. One way, I'm just going to show it to you, but don't do it. There's a simpler way. Is you go to architecture and then it says level in here under data. Make a new plan or not, you check this make plan new or uncheck it. So that's one way, and then you can start drawing the level. There's an easier way. You go in your elevation view, you select مثلا the sidewalk level and CO for copy, and you can click and move it to the top of your footing. And this one, you can copy it to the bottom of the footing as well. الحين صار عندي هني those multiple levels. It will follow in order, so level 5, 6. Then I added them later. Yeah. So in footings, ignore the big one. This big one is for the elevation, for the elevator. And we will add a tag and say this is elevator footing. All the other footings are following these smaller ones. So that's the one we're referencing. And we'll get to then how to show the other ones. I'll see it in a minute. Let's say they're supposed to be attached. So Hani fixed those elements. So I wish I changed the text. So this is top of footing. And this is bottom of footing. And do the split as well, to add elbow for both of them. You will probably have to move these around. And then the height, you'll see it's covering. So you'll have to move this lower. And again, use your angle, so it's 45, like the one above. And you move this sideways outside as well. Just again, use your 45 detail line.
How did you get the extra floors? It's not working on mine.
I copied the sidewalk level down.
It's not.
What does it tell you?
It's not copying. Let me try again.
I just do CO
It worked.
and I click and drag. So the first one is minus 700, the other one is 1150. The footings, we don't need the lines to go all the way through. So you can, the levels. So you can click on the, let's say, bottom footing. Uncheck the lock technique. And then you can click and drag the line to bring it inside. Do the same thing with the one above. Unlock it. You can click and drag. Give them back from the other section. Their submissions.
Which one is the better one?
Four.
It's not the same.
No. Not for this one.
This one is not about this one.
That's Leo. Yeah. And for today's submissions, they just put a placeholder of that, and the text doesn't really have to match the information. It's just a placeholder. Teams.
Why is the car floating? Do you have the money?
Just shooting. I think we have.
Huh? Then they have a design. Yes, I
That I think is the more. I wouldn't. We didn't get into that. I didn't talk to them about that. Last week, I wouldn't talk to them about that. I didn't find this no need to. talking about footing, ignore the big one.
Then why do you want 1,000 female island?
That's because then you're following this one. Ignore this big one and follow the footing heights of the small ones. The big one is happening only once per the elevator. It's a special, unique.
They're gonna overlap. Agi?
Okay, next thing I want us to see how we're going to show the footings. We're going to draw them as detailed lines. The text. In principle, yes, you should have to see. But yeah, and it should be enough to clear the overlap. Okay, so you see the bottom footing is lower than this distance because it was overlapping the center. So the footings, detail lines, hidden, and then you draw over the vertical and the horizontal part.
هذا شو اسمه البارابت فينش.
Wait, so what are you doing right now?
I'm drawing over the footing using detail lines that are hidden. Once I do, then I can go and select the column بعد ما رسمته, and then you can hide in view the element. If you see it show up even after you hide it, chances are there's a column behind it. So try to do it again until it disappears. Then you're looking through the ground all the way down. ما في depth. الحين أنا رسمت detail lines hidden على الكولوم and على الفوتنج. Hello? Now I want to remove the column and remove the footing, the actual model. I want to hide it. So I go over the line and then you click tab till it selects structural foundation or column. You click on it and then you right click, hide in view element. After you hide it, if it's still showing, that's probably because I hit the one in the Judam, سنة في واحد ورا. So I do the same step and I hide it. In some views, you might have to do it 3 times actually.
It's cutting. Each floor plan is a section cut.
You're probably looking at the column from the 20 cm side, not the 80 cm side.
cut plane عشان اقدر اشوف الفتحات. And that's usually through view range.
In the elevator, it gets trickier. So if you're looking at the elevator core, it's a bit trickier to hide the elements. أول شيء, if the elevator slab قدام the other one, that's the one you're going to show fully. If the other one is covering the elevator, so you'll show the one that's covering it. And هني مثلا, this slab is coming in front of my elevator. So this gets the precedence. This gets priority and I draw this fully and I don't show the full outline مال كذا هذين. على حسب which one is in front of the other. That's the one I'm ما راح ارسم the lines around both. يعني ما راح اسوي rectangle هني وراح اسوي rectangle كامل هني. In this view راح اسوي hidden line على this footing وأوقف. This is going to start from here, go around. Okay? Exactly. So let's do it again. So look, I'm going to do detail line. The one behind, which is the big footing, بسوي line. راح ابتدي من اليمين.
Wait, why am I in?
هذا.
لا اللي هنا
have both elevations. You have to do both. مرة راح يبين شيء ضعيف، مرة راح يبين وسيع، مرة راح يبين قدام الاليفيتر.
لا أنا بطلع ساوث هذه.
That's fine. الساوث مال غير يمكن الساوث مال. الحين رسمت هذا، الحين راح ارسم these walls as well. Here with the elevator, let's do it together, then it's a bit tricky. There are many lines that are overlapping. And if you hide one of them, you might hide the elevation wall. Did someone already do that? So OJ, let me hide this one. You have vegetation in front of your facade, hide it. زي نشوف هنا أنا رسمت hidden lines على this part, كل هذيلا رسمت hidden lines. I traced the footing and I traced this footing. الحين when I select the walls behind, start by hiding some of them. There's going to be multiple ones. So you'll use the tab to keep hiding elements.
He's hiding the walls. If the walls don't come down to the floor, they have to hide the Wait, what's happening? This is a column that you're touching.
I'm having an issue with my hidden line because it's too short to show as a broken line. Do you know how to create new line types? You could, but there's quite a few of them. So that's going to be more work, but then messier. So you can go to manage. I'll show it to you next slide. It's going to take actually more time, and I think it's not from this part. Right. Make sure to hide the things behind. بالآخر you'll see this. الحين عندنا those lines that are going all the way through, you want to unlock them. And you would drag them over. Make sure you unlock so it doesn't drag the whole thing. So they're not going all the way through. Okay, let's actually shift to the accent wall. Upload accent wall. You'll notice it's probably not aligned to the door method if you have a door or to the edge of the wall. Here we have only two big ones but in smaller tiles. So how can we fix this? And then?
You find the center.
Exactly, so let's draw some detail lines. Draw the center. And then find the center of your tiles. You can draw another line in between them. And then you select one of your lines beneath. Move. You take the center of the tiles to the center of the wall. So this way it becomes centered with the wall. Do the same thing with this one. No, then you have two walls actually. And you have to do it vertically as well. So a line, let's say you get a full piece من تحت.
So we're shifting the brick based on the wall, based on the door, and not the door based on the
If you have a door, you should center the door to the wall. So الحين مثلا the door is not centered, صح? I'll do the same thing. I'll take this line. I'll take this line. I can draw to the center. So I'm centering my door if I have the door inside. And I'm centering the pattern. الحين لو لاحظت أنا الحين عدلت الباترن من تحت. It's the top of the wall. This is one wall. This is another wall. صح? There's a gap beneath. The material doesn't continue. So you need to also manually do that. Create a line beneath. Move it على ارتفاع التile. Let's say 400 مثلا is mine. So now I know that this line should be here. So then tab. And make sure to delete all your detail lines. Okay, so you'll notice here it starts with a full piece. It connects, keeps going. There is no break between wall and wall. Fog, it might be a different measurement. Just double check that things are fine up there. Okay. So keep working and we'll continue next class. Any questions? Your work will give you back by next class. There's some things we have to modify.